Hello everyone, this is Dr. Leili Hatami. In this video, we're going to cover the rest of Chapter 1, the human body and orientation. Our topic is about homeostasis. Just think about the fact that your body contains trillions of cells in nearly constant activity. You begin to appreciate what a wonderful organism your body really is. The word homeostasis describes the body's ability to maintain relatively stable internal conditions, even though the outside world is continuously changing. Homeostasis is dynamic, that is, it can change over a narrow range that is compatible with maintaining cellular life processes. For example, the level of glucose in the blood is maintained within a narrow range. It normally does not fall too low between meals or rise too high even after eating a high glucose meal. The brain needs a steady supply of glucose to keep functioning. A low blood glucose level may lead to unconsciousness or even death. A prolonged high blood glucose level, by contrast, can damage blood vessels and cause excessive loss of water in the urine. And for the homeostasis, all of our organ systems are involved, but the major organ system are nervous system and endocrine system. These two systems play a major role in maintaining homeostasis. Do not forget. In summary, homeostasis means equilibrium or a balance in which internal conditions change and vary but always within relatively narrow limits. And then we learned that every organ system plays a role in maintaining the constancy of the internal environment. However, the nervous and endocrine system play a major role. Our body must constantly be monitored and regulated to maintain homeostasis. All homeostatic control mechanisms have at least three components: a receptor, control center, and effector. The first component is the receptor. The receptor is a type of sensor that monitors the environment and responds to changes in the environment. It responds to such changes called stimuli by sending information to the second component. The second component is the control center. The control center determines the set point. It's going to receive input from receptor and also determines appropriate response. Third component is the effector. Effector receives output from control center and it provides the means for the control center's response to the stimulus. Through two feedback mechanisms, the homeostasis is maintained in your body: positive and negative feedback mechanism. So when response reduces a stimulus, we call this as negative feedback. And when the response enhances the stimulus is called positive feedback. On this picture, you can see all of the components of the homeostatic control mechanism, which we define the receptor, control center, effector. When we have the stimulus, the changes in the environment, doesn't matter the internal environment or external environment, the stimulus produces change in variable and we gonna lose the balance, so we can have imbalance. The stimulus make imbalance. The receptors, the sensor, they're going to detect the changes. And then They are sending the information through afferent pathway to control center, which is our second component. And the control center is going to provide a response by sending the information through the efferent pathway to the effectors. And finally, we're gonna have the response. The response can reduce the effect of a stimulus and return the variable to the homeostatic level. So finally we can reach to the balance, to the set point. Let's talk about the negative feedback mechanism. The most homeostatic control mechanisms are negative feedback mechanism. In negative feedback systems, the response will affect the stimulus is to either shut off the original stimulus or reduce its intensity. A good example of the non-biological negative feedback mechanism is a home heating system connected to a thermostat. In this situation, the thermostat contains both the receptor and the control center. If the thermostat is set at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, the heating system will be triggered on when the house temperature drops below that setting. So when it's go below the 68, so the heating system turns on. As the heater produces heat, the air is warmed. When the temperature reaches 68 degrees Fahrenheit or slightly higher, the thermostat sends a signal to shut off the heater. Your body thermostat operates in a similar way to regulate body temperature. Other negative feedback mechanisms regulate heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rate, the release of hormones, the blood levels of glucose, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and minerals. So here you can see these two important examples how our body can regulate the body temperature by negative feedback. This is a mechanism through our nervous system. And the way our body is going to regulate the blood glucose is based on negative feedback mechanism through our endocrine system. Do you remember? These two systems are the major system in our homeostasis. But do not forget, all of our organ systems are involved in maintaining homeostasis, but these two systems, nervous system and endocrine system, plays a major role. Okay, let's look at how our body can regulate the body temperature through the nervous system mechanism. Okay, so here we go. In this picture, you can see the body temperature is regulated by a negative feedback mechanism. Okay, so here you can see the balance or set point. Our body temperature, it's gonna be the set point is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. When we have the stimulus as heat or the body temperature rises, there are receptors in our skin or there are some temperature sensitive cells in our skin which they're going to sense the changes at the temperature. Then they're going to send information through afferent pathway to our brain, to the control center, actually to the thermoregulatory center in our brain. Then the brain is going to provide a response, and through the efferent pathway is sending the information to the effectors, which in this scenario the effectors can be sweat glands. Sweat glands can be activated, and through the sweating we can lose some heat. So in this way we can go back to the We can cool our body or back to the balance or to the set point, to the temperature, set point temperature. Okay, look at the other scenario. Just do not forget, our body temperature is normally 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. When your body temperature falls below the norm, the sensor informs the temperature control center in the brain that body temperature has decreased. The temperature control center is going to send signals through the efferent pathway to the effectors, which they are skeletal muscle. We start shivering. So then the skeletal muscle can produce heat. So in this way, our body temperature rises and the stimulus ends. This is the examples of negative feedback. And as you can see, our body temperature is regulated by a negative feedback mechanism. So in this way, the response, it can reduces the stimulus. For example, here, the response, it can reduce it. So when our body temperature rises, the response is cooling our body temperature. Or when our body temperature falls, the response is to rise body temperature. So the response can reduce or shut off the original stimulus, which we call this as negative feedback mechanism. The other example of negative feedback mechanism is the control blood glucose by the endocrine system. The receptors which we have in our body, they're going to sense the increased blood glucose or blood sugar. So then the receptors is going to send the information to the control center, which in this scenario, our control center is pancreas, one of the endocrine system organs. The pancreas secrete insulin, the hormone which is going to be released into the blood. The insulin function is to decrease the blood sugar. Insulin causes body cells, which is our effectors, to absorb more glucose, and in this way they're going to decrease blood glucose level. What was our stimulus? Increasing blood sugar. And then through the response, we could decrease the blood sugar. That's the reason we call this as negative feedback mechanism. When we have the increasing stimulus, in response we should have the decreasing the stimulus. Okay, so the other mechanism, we have positive feedback. In positive feedback, the response is going to enhance or exaggerate the original stimulus. And the positive feedback mechanisms exist in our body, but they are rare. So the formation of blood clots and uterine contraction in childbirth are example of positive feedback mechanism. For example, in childbirth, pressure of the body's head on the cervix is detected by sensory receptors. So during childbirth, we have the pressure of the baby's head on the cervix. Then this pressure, which is our stimulus, is going to inform the receptors. So the receptors, the sensory receptors, it's going to inform the brain. Is going to send the information to the control center, which is our brain, one of the nervous system organs. The brain stimulates the release of a hormone, oxytocin hormone, which is going to promote the stronger uterine contraction. So the brain is going to send a response or send the signals to the effector, which the effector here is the smooth muscle in the uterus. So the smooth muscle is going to contract. The contraction of this smooth muscle is going to make more pressure. Then again, we're gonna have this information going to the brain, to the effector. So we're going to have more contraction. When we have more contraction, we're going to have more pressure. So as you can see, the response is going to enhance or exaggerate the original stimulus, which in this scenario is the pressure of the baby's head on the cervix. Or the other example for positive feedback is platelet plaque formation and blood clotting. Let's look at this picture. In this picture, you can see a great example of a positive feedback mechanism in our body, which is the formation of platelet plaque. Or blood clotting. Blood clotting is a normal response to a breaking the walls of the blood vessel and is an excellent example of an important body function controlled by positive feedback. Basically, once a vessel has been damaged, the blood elements called platelets immediately begin to cling to the injured site. And then they release chemicals. So we have a break in the blood vessel wall. So the platelets going to adhere to the site of break or damage, and then they're going to release chemicals. These chemicals attract more platelets. When we have platelets again, they're going to they're going to release chemicals and attract more platelets. So here, look at this. The stimulus is increasing platelets and the response is also increasing platelets. So you can see that the stimulus and the response, both of them proceeds in the same direction. And finally, we can get the platelet plaque formed. This is the definition of positive feedback mechanism. As you can see, in contrast of the negative feedback mechanism, which we had the increasing body temperature as the stimulus, and the response was decreasing body temperature. Or when we had the decreasing body temperature as a stimulus, the result was increasing body temperature. But here you can see in the positive feedback mechanism, both the stimulus and the response are going in the same direction. So these two are the great examples for positive feedback mechanism, which you shouldn't forget. The enhancement of labor contraction by oxytocin, which we had increasing pressure, and then in the response we also had the increasing contraction, which leads to increasing pressure. Both are the same direction. And also for the blood clot formation, we have these two, the stimulus and the result at the same direction. So you should know that homeostasis is so important. All our organ systems, especially our nervous system and endocrine system, they're working to maintain balance, to make homeostasis for our body. But the reality is that as we age, our body's control systems become less efficient and our internal environment becomes less and less stable. So, in this way, when we lose the homeostasis or homeostatic imbalance occurs, we can be at the risk of disease. We can get sick. Thank you for watching this video. I'm going to continue the rest of chapter 1, which is the language of anatomy, in the other video, which belongs to the lab portion. Thank you so much.